You know what's coming up next, ladies and gentlemen? It's going to be Dignitas going up against SpaceStation Gaming. I got to rein it in over here with Hinduman on my desk. This is my desk today, Hindu.
This is a British desk. This is a British desk.
Oh, there are two of you on here, aren't there? We need to get as many NA teams to World as we can so that this doesn't happen again, ladies and gentlemen. We got to try and slow this down. But coming up here in this matchup, SpaceStation Gaming, they got a lot on the line. Dignitas kind of have nothing on the line. You still think we're going to be seeing the best from them?
Pride, and they can be party poopers. That's a big key within the team. We saw Dignitas last year. Wasn't the same team, but Qvofred and Trixtank specifically, they were in the same situation here. They didn't qualify, but they still managed to put LG through. And then they were hometown heroes for a little while for North America. This time around, they might be party poopers for a couple of North American fans, especially specific for the SpaceStation fans out there. SpaceStation still have a lot to do in this game. Even if they think Dignitas is going to be a pushover with the performances Dig have had, they've still got to put their foot down in this set.
And I'm going to ask you here a little bit about it, too, because SpaceStation, I mean, they're where are they at right now? I believe they're 1 and 2 right now, Graham. They got these 2 more sets to go. This one with Dignitas, then Trifecta. They got to win both of them. They got to make sure they do that. And then they got to hope for just about everything else in the world to go their way. But that's the scenario they're looking at.
So reason being is SpaceStation, I believe, are currently 2 and 1. After the game so far, because they played Noble earlier on, they lost. Sorry, 1 and 2, I should say. And if they win the next 2 games, that'll put them at 3 and 2. So the best they can do is get all 3 wins. Then you're looking to elevate. Well, they're already on 3 wins, but they've got 1 game left to play, which is against Trifecta. Trifecta still have 2 games left, and they could technically do it too. So it's going to be very interesting to see. The first thing SpaceStation needs to do, beat Dig before we can even talk anymore about whether they're still in qualification. If they lose this game, they're out. That's all you need to know. So Dignitas, a really big game for them. Do you reckon Dig are just going to go all the guns blazing in Alpha?
They've got nothing to lose, and it might as well just come out with the spiciest picks they've got in their draft pool. Maybe not Shark Jungle.
No, you don't like Chat Jungle?
It did nothing.
No, Chalk Jungle was not looking great for him, but we saw the Dignitas boys after that last game. I mean, apparently to Rom, that was jumping up and down and celebrating, but what I saw, it looked like they just were breathing a little bit. They were like, okay, we can still win some games. We can still play at the level that we know we're capable of and come back from like a 10K deficit.
Well, it broke the curse as well for Dignitas. I mean, Dignitas just went on an 8-game losing streak before that game, I believe. If you factor in the fact that they lost at the set to Obey in the online season, then came here, lost every game, but thank you, Noble, for breaking the duck for Dignitas here.
It wasn't easy for them as well against Noble. They were behind about 7,000 gold at one point, and then eventually just came back because classic Noble throws.
How much do you put into the Panda Cat curse? Isn't that what he did? Isn't that his fault?
That's true.
Yeah. How much you put in that, guys? I think it's the real deal.
I mean, it seems to have come across that way. I mean, Panda, you don't shake Panda's hand and then you don't go to Worlds. That's what I've learned so far.
I mean, I've still learned
have
about
you shook his hand?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there you go. That makes sense.
I mean, I've learned about the PBM curse as well. He said, wow, EU sucks a year ago, and then for that entire year, an NA team hasn't beat an EU team in a set until yesterday.
Until yesterday. That's how long it's been.
The curse has been broken.
Well,
finally.
They were finally able to get a couple wins down there. So, hey, NA's got some pride left. I'm happy to rep them up here with these EU boys. But either way, Dignitas and SpaceStation Gaming, they're ready to battle it out. SpaceStation got everything on the line. In fact, let's go ahead and pull up those picks and bans. That way we can see where they want to go to fight for it. Finally, we just got up here.
I wonder when we were going to get to him. I was like, come on, I'm here for picks and bans.
We just got up here, Graham.
We've been here a while.
Why do we have SpaceStation behind us? Surely we should have Dig. We're European.
No, I don't want Dig behind me. They're losers now.
Oh, they're no longer a EU team?
No, not to me. Only winners are from Europe.
That's true.
Alpha Jackal. Let's ignore Graham for a moment. Who do you think that they're going to prioritize here in these picks and bans? SpaceStation Gaming did get the first pick. Who do you think that they're going to be looking at? Do you think they want to try and get Homiefe on something they're comfortable with? Maybe Zap? Where are they looking?
They're going to be looking at that solo side. They're going to look to put pressure onto Scary D because he has looked good on the RTO this tournament, and that's about it.
I think that's a big key there. Solo lane variety up against Scary D. Neither of them have had the greatest of tournaments so far. Obviously, SpaceStation's still in it, as we said. And I think what we may see out of SpaceStation Gaming is trying to adjust to what Europeans been throwing out just lately. And it's not, when I say Europe have been throwing out, mainly what we've seen coming out from Elevate. Because everyone seems to be scared of this Elevate composition and trying to work out our other team's going to start playing it. And we see more and more of that as time's gone on. The only thing we've really seen out of the other European teams that people have been noticing has been Rivals, Deathwalkers, Stone of Gaia. Which now means everybody's going to get Stone of Gaia because it's new flavor of the month.
Well, it looks like Dignitas, I believe they did go with that triple tank or something very similar to it earlier in the day when they got their first victory. And SpaceStation might be paying a little bit of credit towards that, getting rid of the Kabrak, and they don't want to deal with it. And then, as you mentioned, RDO is the one pick that Scary D did well on, so Dignitas take that away.
And they don't want their own Andinster to have Soul.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
Like, Andinster has looked very good on the Soul this tournament, but taking it away from Zyrhoes, they're not comfortable first picking it, and they know Dig will take it in the first two.
Yeah, Zyrhoes' playstyle for Dignitas is very much, we've said it a couple of times now, very focused on surviving these team fights. He doesn't necessarily go in and go aggressive very often until he's very fair and in that right position. Most of the time, it's all farm in the early game, play very safe. Someone like Sol, someone like Toth, they're his go-tos along with Raijin. Why? Because he can just sit back and get away from the fights all the time when he gets engaged on and allow Dignitas to collapse. So limit his god pool a little bit. We may see SSG look to take another mid laner away like that, give that to Andinster, so Dignitas don't have it available.
I've just been wondering where the Morrigan has been for all these EU teams. It's only been Hurrywind coming out from Trifecta that's played the Morrigan this tournament.
Yeah, I did ask Zyrhoes about that. I'm like, what happened to your Morrigan? Because like before this tournament, Zyrhoes was telling me, I tell you what, if they give me Morrigan, I'm a destroy 'em all. Well, he's had the opportunity to get Morrigan every single game, and he's still not done it, and now they're out.
Yeah, no, it is too late for Dignitas in demand, and yeah, let's just keep talking about it. It's very sad.
No, it's
very
not me
sad
rubbing
for
it
him.
in. It's just me being straight up and honest. Are they in the tournament, Finch?
They're in this tournament.
No, they're not. They went home yesterday.
Well, they're playing right now.
I mean, because we're forcing him to, pretty much, like just to make sure that
This is
SpaceStation
torture.
gaming. I mean, I'm just being honest. This is what happened to Dig. Like, but now Dig get the chance to actually redeem themselves. It's redemption day. That's what today is for them. It's not qualification day. It's redemption day for Dig. Maybe I'll call him EU again after this. We'll find out.
And for their redemption, Dignitas pick up Fafnir and Osiris. These are some picks that we actually see get banned a lot of the times, Osiris and Fafnir. So Dignitas probably very happy to have these available to him, Alpha.
Osiris, just a solo lane bully, will destroy the life of Scary D, in my opinion. And then Fafnir is just an all-round great god. That AoE coerce is just does so much.
And that's the funny thing here. SpaceStation banning away that solve to make sure Zyrhoes doesn't have it available is fine. But if you ever look back at any of the games Europe have pretty much played this year, when they played Dig, Variety is not allowed the Osiris. What's Variety getting hold of? His Osiris. What's going to happen to Scary D? He's going to sit under the tower and hope to high heaven Variety doesn't feel like diving.
He will dive him.
Oh, I know.
Oh,
There
Morrigan
we go!
finally!
There it is.
It's
Morrigan.
redemption day. See, I told you, Finch. I told you.
It's going to be the redemption for Dignitas, selecting the Morrigan for Zyrhoes there in the mid. And there's already some good options to turn into with the Homiefe and Sylvanus selected there for SpaceStation. So even Jigz getting something he's a little really comfortable with that Sylvanus.
I do like that Hercules ban as well coming out from
Yeah.
Dignitas there as well. I mean, we've seen a little bit more. North Americans are really favoring this Hercules alpha. What is it about Europe not picking it?
We just don't really value him so well because, yes, he has a strong laning phase, but only if you really allow him to by playing up in his face. And Osiris should have a good matchup against him.
Fair.
If you just keep your distance, use your abilities from that distance, Hercules can't do too much to you.
But it's a lot of respect to Scary D for that one as well. I mean, taking that away when you're playing the Osiris is quite surprising.
Well, I mean, they've obviously got Scary D confused with Benji, because no one is going to be scared of Scary D.
I mean, well, who else was there who played as well? It's not just Benji. There was Aquarius as well. They've also picked a little bit. Fine, okay. I mean, there's quite a few NA players that are pretty good with the hook, but I've not seen too much of it out of Scary D.
SpaceStation choosing to ban away that Circuit. Take a little bit of an eye towards the jungle here.
Why is
Maybe
that?
want to limit some of the options for Qvofred. And also, I mean, as long as Morrigan's on the ban, there's a couple of guys that jump up the pecking order where we don't want two Circuits jumping around.
Definitely. But not only that as well, Circuit's very good at dealing with a Sylvanus. First of all,
Sure.
the anti-heal means that even if it's not him focused, the Wisps won't really come into account because it ignores the protections that the Wisps give and the sustain as well with that ultimate.
And I also want to see a Rad Tasker ban coming out from SSG. Again, similar to Ada Circuit, you don't want double Circuit. Double Rad Tasker is also equally terrifying.
I mean,
Yeah.
could also go double Thor. I mean, that's
Double
also
Thor.
another option.
I mean, we talked about that already, in the fact
Sure.
that you're leveling up your wall. It doesn't really do much until level 12.
Fair. But I mean, it lasts a little bit longer.
I mean, you could do it, just delays the inevitability, I suppose.
Yeah, it's just more about the safety factor more than anything else. But to be fair, with the Morrigan draft for me here, I don't really think it matters too much about how many junglers you ban because Zyrhoes could just turn into Homiefe or Raijin and like have a whale of a time. I mean, the Suns in battle coming out from Homiefe are always useful just to disengage or help burst an objective down. And then Raijin, well, Zyrhoes has got a pretty good Raijin. He's played it a couple of times before, so we know he's got it and he's got bull.
Dignitas took a while there to decide on where they wanted to go with that final ban. They decide to throw it to the direction of Homiefe. Take away that nausea from him. It's something that we know he can play well, but you all both talked about it already. He can also play Thor, so he still has good options available. SpaceStation, though, they don't want to deal with the rat, and I don't blame them. You don't want two through the cosmos on the same team.
Yeah, you're right, Alpha. It's quite a wise ban as well, just because it's a good escape more than anything else. And not only an escape, but once you get into the Ezratatoska, the hover time is so good because you can jump from branch to branch, which means that you could reinitiate if the fight turns around.
And also, Qvofred is really the true carry of Team Dignitas. So if you allow him an early game character like Ratataska, he is going to carry from the get-go rather than 15 minutes in.
I mean, if this was regular season or Valencia, I'd agree with you. But like this tournament, bit of a different story. Like we've not really seen him get out of the gate, first of all. So I would like to see Qvo something that he's going to get out of the gate on, though, this game. Something that he can go from like minute 1, minute 2 into the game and look for aggression.
Thanatos.
Thanatos pick could certainly
Qvo?
help them get out, yeah.
I mean, it gets right out of the gate. Not on Qvo, but it gets him right out of the gate. Ymir.
Sure.
Ullr. There's it's Ullr. Not in the jungle, probably,
Well,
but a
that's
Ullr
for
pick
Arkkyl, yeah.
has been taken over there for Arkkyl for Dignitas. He's going to be more than happy to play it. This is something we've seen here at this LAN, though. This Ullr pick's been real popular for some of that pressure, all that damage it can put out.
It's just, if you are able to hit your abilities, you win lane 100% of the time, no matter who you're against.
Yep.
And against a Hui who's very difficult to dislodge, that hail of arrows from an extended distance can put him a bit further back.
That's one of the reasons Ullr's getting prioritized more now, is because lane play is very strong, as well as being able to set very far back in the team fights and still put some damage out, have some good escapes. The only thing that Ullr really struggles with is that he doesn't have a hyper late game, in terms of he's very balanced throughout the game. His early seems quite strong, but then he doesn't really develop past that. He's just consistent damage output. He never really goes off like the likes of a Rama will in the later stages. So it's one of the reasons why sometimes we never used to see the Ullr, but it seems to be prioritized a bit more.
Susano and Erlang Shen rounding out the compositions for SpaceStation Gaming, and then Dignitas happy to snap up that Ravana pick. So it looks like they're going to let Ravana go into the jungle here for him, and then Osiris solo.
I'm okay with it. I mean, Qvo's Ravana is probably one of his best warriors in the jungle from my point of view, and his aggressive style is actually way better than a lot of other people who play that Ravana in the jungle.
I mean, back at DreamHack Valencia, he had a band against him consistently until Game 5 against us, at which point we let him through somehow.
Well, now we got those two compositions figured out here for you. Taking a look at them in full, let's go ahead and get a quick word here from you. Hindu, who you got, Dignitas or SpaceStation?
I'm going SpaceStation. You know why? Because I want a three-way tie.
All right, Alpha Jackal. Very quick there, Hindu. Thank you.
I'm going to go Dignitas, so therefore they could be European again.
Okay, Dignitas SpaceStation. We're
don't worry
split
about that.
over here on the desk. Let's go ahead and let Aggro and Taco take it away.
Thank you very much, guys on the desk. It's SpaceStation's last hope. They need to win out the rest of the day and end up getting some help. They want to be able to qualify for HRX. I'm Aggro, joined by Taco. And Taco, I mean, this is the first time we've seen Qvo go back to Ravana in a while. It's about time, in my mind.
It is about time, especially when you're combining that alongside of that Morrigan selection. Probably one of the most crucial parts of that Dignitas draft is that we're finally seeing Zyrhoes back on that Morrigan. It is, I think it's really been missing for the team. And if you're SpaceStation, you got to be a little bit concerned here because energy just helped part of the stars align for you.
Exactly. And Dignitas, this draft for them, it just finally feels like a Dignitas draft. They get the Morrigan, they get Ravana, they get Osiris. If you would have told me that they get 2 out of those 3 gods, I'd been like, well, good luck to whoever they're going up against. But to get all 3 of those means that they are so comfortable with those picks and they synergize so well together. The right side of the map for SpaceStation is going to have trouble dealing with Osiris and Ravana together.
You can't even count out the other side of the map, though, for Dignitas. I mean, Fafnir and Ullr on Arkkyl. It's a very aggressive hunter, very aggressive playstyle. Typically, you'd favor a Hu Yi in these circumstances. Speaking of which, Zapman reminding Arkkyl that he's still around with that cheeky little double bounce.
Zap kind of using a little bit of his mana pool in order to throw some of that out, but has a mana potion in tow, so he's not too worried about it. Zyrhoes taking a decent amount of damage just from Jigz auto attacks because Trix walked right up to the tower line and was looking to clear the wave right away.
And for Zyrhoes, though, even falling this low, not too concerning. But speaking of which, there's some concern in the solo lane side because Qvo just fell to Homiefe.
Qvo has not had a good super regional so far, and it continues really early on, pre-level 1 against SpaceStation. This is a big boon for them. Now that blue buff is in jeopardy of being stolen away by SpaceStation, and I love what Andinster and Jigz are doing, immediately heading over to the Fire Elementals to assist, just in case Variety it wants to meet up with Zyrhoes and Trixtank and try and defend these buffs. Dignitas decides not to, and it's going to be both right side buffs that should be going to Dignitas. going SpaceStation's way.
And for Homiefe now, this is a very ideal situation because not only that, but he's also getting to farm out the back Harpies from Dig. Qvo, whenever he starts to make that return, this is not the start that you want if you're taking those warriors in. You're looking for the early aggression, the early pressure, but instead, it's in favor of SpaceStation.
Trix needs to be careful here because Homie's around the back. Jigz pulling him in. Look at where Homie's positioning, waiting for Trixtank to jump up and over the wall, but Zyrhoes has spotted him out now. So instead, he's just going to put a little bit of pressure and a little bit of poke onto Dignitas. Love that Homie leaves one of the small Harpy camps in that back Harpy, making sure that it's not going to respawn until someone clears it out, meaning that the rotation of going to back Harpies is a lot less valuable for Qvofred.
And it'll make it just feel like a giant waste of time by the time he ventures over there, only to discover that the Harpy, worth pretty much anything, has already been taken away. Zapman trying to secure those oracles, could find himself in a little bit of trouble here. Arkkyl looking for the axe stun just off the mark.
Zap doesn't get any of the oracles though, so that vision goes Team Dignitas's way, and not a lot of threat of getting ganked in the dual lane early on for either side here. I mean, SpaceStation's jungler Homiefe doesn't want to head on over to the left-hand side because he still has to pick up this blue buff, or help Scary D drop it, I should say, on the right-hand side of the map because of how much pressure that he and Scary exerted on the enemy jungle early on. So that Oracle vision, while important, not as important as the golden experience that they gave.
Still a pretty ideal situation here for SpaceStation. Homiefe and Scary D should be hitting level 5. Well, actually, Scary D's already got 5, and so if you're Qvo, you've got to be incredibly careful, even looking to try and farm out your own jungle, because the fire elementals are completely off the table, I think, for Dignitas.
Qvo sitting a level and a half down in the early game. Homiefe got that ultimate. Qvo not even level 4, might not even have access to all 3 of his abilities if he wanted to put an extra point into that Prana Onslaught. Did decide to pick up the overhead kick, wisely so, because of how much pressure SpaceStation could exert. And that's the name of the game in the mid lane for SpaceStation's picks, is pressure. I mean, Raijin, Sylvanus, that's the whole idea, is to get the out clear potential and use that to get around the map faster.
And Qvo even opted for the purification beads, and I believe that this is because he had the mentality of just diving Andinster off cooldown with his ultimate, since he would already get a lot of that damage reduction from the way that works out, but it's just unfortunate for him.
Left-hand side, Zapman getting really low. Sorry to cut you off there, Taco. I thought Arkkyl was going to continue to play aggressive there in that duo lane, and that's what, that's like you were saying, Qvofred gets purification beads in order to try and play aggressive in the jungle, and that's why you pick a god like Ullr, is in order to play aggressive, and SpaceStation doing more of that on the right-hand side. Zyrhoes going to get the beads out from Andy and then transform, uses the ultimate to chase him down in the mid lane, but Tycho Drums creates enough distance to get Andinster out of danger. Meanwhile, Homiefe throws out that Typhoon to force back Trixtank.
And that Typhoon actually just going to be a little bit shy of ensuring that Trixtank actually falls to his death. Trixtank now level 5 actually does have that Draconic form available, meaning that he should be able to avoid that kind of pressure, but the buffs, entirely different story.
Homie, a little greedy to go back for the speed buff, but once he picks it up, he'll be A-okay. Good execution by SpaceStation to continue to put Qvofred behind. You heard Alpha Jackal say it on the desk. He feels like Qvofred is the true carry for Dignitas, and he has not had a very good Super Regionals, Taco.
No, this has been a pretty brutal Super Regionals for Qvofred in particular, because it hurts a lot. I feel as though a jungler main as well would probably take the losses that Dig has suffered harder upon themselves, because he probably felt as though he needed to be the carrying factor, and then he came up short, meaning that he let his team down. And I don't think that that's the circumstance. I think that it is a little bit of a collective effort, because Smite is a team game, but it does hurt when you were regarded so highly and then perform so poorly.
This time it's Zapman who's able to get the better end of the Oracle contest. Now glowing blue, and that vision a little bit more impactful than the last. But Zap needs to be careful, because this left-hand purple buff is up and the invade is coming from Team Dignitas. Looks like SpaceStation's Hunter was able to secure that purple if Jigz wants to head on over and pick it up, but Jigz hasn't even shown himself on the left side of the map yet. He's been sticking right next to Andinster, making sure that he can stay safe.
And I like this decision-making as well, considering that Andinster already lost his purification beads earlier on, and those are still down for about another minute, so you don't want to take any chances. Additionally, leave Zapman just to do what he loves doing best, farming out one more wave.
And trying to take the 1v1 potentially against Arkkyl as well, though Ullr is not one of those gods that you can 1v1 too effectively. Hui, one of the best at 1v1s in the lane, but even Ullr can find the better end of that trade.
Zap's got to be careful, though, with the way the Trixtank's wrapping around his underside, able to juke out that hammer stun, but still having to worry about the wave. And I don't imagine Zap playing it too over-aggressive, considering that SpaceStation does have enough vision on the map to make sure that if Trixtank's missing, Zap's probably getting ganked.
Surprised that Andinster has got a slight net worth lead over Zyrhoes with how many waves that Jigz has shared from Andinster and how many waves that Zyrhoes has been able to solo down. But Zap, speaking of solo, gonna find it onto Arkkyl on the left-hand side, trying to get away from Trixtank, who's holding that hammer just in case. Zap decides to go for the wave, which is a very intelligent decision there, knowing that he's dead to rights, and instead just uses his ricochet to get as much farm as possible. Big solo kill there for SpaceStation's Hunter. All the while, this pressure on the right-hand side continues to go well for SpaceStation. They already got the Tier 1 tower in solo.
One more wave doesn't really apply here, considering that you just know that you're dead. He probably used his jump as part of his initiation or aggression onto Arkkyl, and Arkkyl even used his purification beads. Zapman, though, without the ultimate, probably giving him the upper or the slight edge over Arkkyl in that trade.
Well, Zap had to use his beads as well, but he's the one who ended up on top. Sure, he's not too upset about it, as SpaceStation set up for another speed buff invade, and it will go successfully. Dignitas just a little bit slow on the uptake. Scary D has looked pretty good so far in this one. A lot of that coming down to the first blood on wave number 1 in the solo lane on the Qvofred. He got the assist on it. But that Erlang Shen is something that we've seen a surprisingly little amount of so far at Super Regionals.
I believe Deathwalker is the only other person to have really brought it out, and that was in his set against Dignitas. And I love the decision here by Scary D to also choose it, because it seemed as though Variety did struggle a bit against that pressure from the Erlang.
And we were talking about pressure solo laners. It's Osiris, it's Cullen, and then everyone kind of forgets about Erlang, I feel like. And while maybe not as pressure-oriented as the other two, can certainly bring that extra damage and clear in the early game. And an early Stone of Gaia here for Scary D, who, you know, we see a lot of these Stone of Gaias against knock-up heavy compositions. Dignitas has no knock-ups. We see them against magical solo laners because they don't do enough damage, but they're up against the physical. Zapman has no beads, remember. Big damage coming out of Arkkyl off the stun from Trixtank. Not quite enough damage to bring him down, but it is SpaceStation on the retreat.
And Zyrhoes, though, he's not ready to let go of Jigz just yet. Andinster trying to get his support into safety, but Qvo still looking to aggress. The rest of his team has left him behind, though, and it's going to be Zapman getting credit for the kill onto Qvo.
Dignitas on separate pages, and that's been the takeaway for me during Super Regionals, is Arkkyl still playing aggressive into Zapman, but those protections from the Wisps end up coming up big there for SpaceStation's Hunter. Nicely timed heal, even if Jigz may not have intended to give him the protections from the heal, as the purple buff invade again attempted by Dignitas, but again, will fail.
And of course, Jigz and Andinster are just sticking around to make sure that they could help Zapman farm that buff securely. Arkkyl was thinking about invading it. He knew that Zapman didn't really have too many cooldowns available since he just used them to help secure that kill onto Qvo. And on top of that, anytime Huyi's jump is down, that's an ideal situation for an Ullr to try and find the upper hand in a 1v1 trade.
Well, Zap's gotten the better end of it so far. Going back to this Erlang Shen pick, I mean, it just brings so much control in the mid to late game team fights. But this Stone of Gaia, could Scary D get away with this just because of how far ahead he is over Variety?
One of the primary reasons we've been seeing Stone of Gaia resurface so much is because of how cheap it is for how much health it actually provides. Getting an additional, I believe, 400 health for a 2,000 gold item is more than worthwhile, and the passive is kind of just there for giggles. It's one of those things that you don't really pay as much mind to it in the earlier stages of the game, because 2% of your max health, hold that thought though. Oh, actually, it's going to be short, but 2% of your max health at earlier stages, not that big of a deal, but as you continue stacking those items as a warrior, it really starts to come into play.
Speed buff again. SpaceStation return to their tent that they've set up here, but this time I believe Trixtank was able to steal it away with the hammer. Indeed he was. Qvofred gets to have a little bit of extra movement speed with the speed buff for the first time so far this game. Homie might want to keep the pressure going on a Variety, though Variety putting out more damage than Homie may have been anticipating.
I believe that T2 tower also clipped him there, so definitely adding in a little bit of a deterrence factor. Can't really go too ham on the Osiris just yet. And I think that Qvo's actually done a pretty solid job at keeping a relatively close experience gap between Homiefe, considering that start. Normally when you die that early on, it can be incredibly rough to get back into a game.
Looks like Zapman has adopted a build that Arkkyl was the first that I saw start to do it, which is what's probably going to be a Titan's Bane right after Devourer's Gauntlets. Taco, why are we seeing this sort of shift in the Hunter build?
This is mostly greed over anything else. Hold that thought, though. Jigz really wanted to try and find something on the Trixtank. He even used his ultimate there, but
Blink ult.
unfortunately, no one really of value caught up in that.
No, missed the Blink ult there for Jigz, so it's a reset for SpaceStation and Dig as they split the Oracles down the middle. Scary D might be able to solo this Portal Demon down. I mean, Dignitas know about it. Variety gonna get in range right in time, but it's Andinster up and over the wall with the Taiko drums that secures it for SpaceStation, just as they planned.
Pretty huge win, though, for SpaceStation, because that would have been a very easy steal for Variety, I think. Could have just used the Osiris advantage with the lane clear. And speaking of which, Homiefe still just trying to aggress whoever he can right now.
Man, so much damage from that Heartseeker on the Susano, and a couple of different styles of builds. I believe Skilladon played Susano earlier. He went for an early hi-rez Lament. You've got a couple options as to what your item path to be on a god like Susano.
And, I mean, item options, getting back to what you were asking me of the Hu Yi and Hunters in particular with this Titan's Bane rush, it's a more greedy player preference, because the thing about Executioner is it helps your entire team with the way that the passive works and reducing the enemy's protections of if you land those 3 auto attacks. But with Titan's Bane, you get only individual boosted pen shred, and on a Hunter like Hu Yi, you can usually get away with it, although you will suffer when you think about the attack speed. But since it's against Arkkyl, who's playing the Ullr, it actually ends up working out, because neither of these Hunters really have to worry too much about that boosted attack speed steroid.
Well, Arkkyl has kind of a built-in, no, it's not a steroid because you don't activate it as Jigz.
It's the force.
Looks for the blink ult in mid. Zyrhoes gets pulled back in immediately. His quick transformation into the Ravana may be enough to save his life. Typhoon coming through, but not enough damage until Jigz pulls him back in and sets up Andinster for kill number 4 for SpaceStation. And surprise, surprise, the fight breaks out right before the speed buff is about to respawn. That's where SpaceStation's heading.
Zapman, though, trying to catch Arkkyl on the backside. Arkkyl nowhere safe left to run, just looking to juke out as much as possible from Andinster, but he can't get away from Zapman. He's going to get another kill to his name.
Trix about to de-transform in the wrong spot. Another kill for Andy. That's 2 in this engagement, nearly 3. But Zap's ultimate got the last tick onto Arkkyl. Love this decision-making from SpaceStation to force the fight right before the speed buff respawn. And for me, Taco, that looked like that was just Zyrhoes being a little rusty against Susano. I mean, you cannot be, I know it sounds crazy, but you can't even take 4 or 5 steps out of your tower line when he can close the gap with that jet stream.
Speaking of which, though, Scary D getting caught up between 2 warriors. It's going to cost him his life, but at least his team was able to secure that Gold Fury, probably the more important objective. Variety, though, not willing to let it go for free. Zapman was thinking about taking up a boxing match against him, but those thorns mean otherwise.
Though did cost Variety his ultimate. Qvofred on the way, no ult for him, so he's not going to be able to continue that chase. As Homie takes Trix for a little ride around the ring around the rosy game, around the tier 2 tower, putting a little bit of extra damage onto that one, but not going to be able to secure the 1,500 gold for his squad.
My favorite part about SpaceStation's engagement underneath that T1 tower was Scary D's decision to pursue the backline even further, trusting his team to get that kill onto Zyrhoes. He just left that one alone to Jigz. He could have chosen to use his cooldowns onto a 10 HP target, but he decided instead to look at Qvofred, keep Qvo zoned out alongside of Trixtank, and then all the focus was taken away from Arkkyl as he rotated in, and of course it made it all too easy for Zap to help alongside of Andinster with shutting them out.
SpaceStation looking great thus far up against Team Dignitas, who have not looked great themselves during this Super Regionals, but kind of thought they'd get a boost of confidence and a boost of play after their comeback victory against Noble earlier on today. SpaceStation seemed to be the one who are playing with confidence, and they really should be. I mean, look at the power items completed now for SpaceStation. That Jade Emperor's crown finished off after the Lotus for Jigz, meaning he's got plenty of physical protection and can boost the physical protection of others in multiple ways. And you've got the Titan's Bane now finished for Zapman, and Homiefe working towards some penetration after that Heartseeker.
Oh, speaking of which, Variety now caught up between 3 members of SpaceStation, and he won't last for much longer. Scary D going to get the final kill on that one, but man, this is becoming increasingly worse for Dignitas in a very short span of time.
And it just has been a steady pull in SpaceStation's favor. Well timed there, Jigz, as he pulls in Qvofred. Homie's waiting for him right where he landed. Now 8 for SpaceStation, and Dignitas just doesn't seem to have an answer.
There is just so much pressure and map control from SpaceStation Gaming. Zap has just been roaming around the opposite side of the map for as long as I can remember. Every time the camera pans over to him, he's at least past the halfway mark in the lane. And that already shows how much confidence this team has. And they kind of have to play with confidence. NRG actually handed them a gift, and the gift was them beating Elevate and ensuring that there was possibilities for the 3-way tie. SpaceStation are not looking to waste that.
Uh-oh, Trix pulled in again, knocked up by Scary D, but it's all in the name of securing Homiefe, his auxiliary speed buff, his double speed buff that he's had every single time but one. Basically every buff that Dignitas has had SpaceStation's name on it. Only red buff has been at least semi-secure for Dig.
The primary issue here for Team Dignitas is that they made the early mistakes against a team with enough veteran experience to know better than allow them chances to come back into this game. The consistent pressure from SpaceStation, not only on the solo lane buffs, but also the mid T1 towers, dual lane with Zapman getting the pressure, it also incredibly hurt Dignitas. It's just, I don't really see an easy avenue for Qvo to come back into this match.
I think the most exciting thing for me about this game for SpaceStation is the one thing that we've been saying consistently about SSG here at Super Regionals. They aren't a proactive team. They are a reactive team, and they're great at it. They're a great counter-punching squad, but they don't force the leads they get as well as they should. They don't try and force you into bad spots. They wait for an enemy team to put themselves in a bad spot. That has not been the case in this game. It has been consistent invades, forcing Dignitas to either fight or give up an objective consistently so far, and that really bodes well for them moving forward.
Oh, speaking of which, Homiefe actually just blinking into mid, forcing out those purification beats from Zyrhoes, and now with those down, Team Dignitas are basically going to have to forfeit their dual lane jungle because there's no way Zyrhoes can risk traversing into that area.
And that's what I'm talking about. It's Homiefe starting it off all by himself, making a play where there isn't one available to him, and getting purification beats, setting up for a potential play later on. That's the aggressive Homiefe that I love to watch and is always talked about as one of the top junglers in North America. When he's playing this well, it makes SpaceStation look unbeatable.
And that's the main thing here for SpaceStation, is that they have to be unbeatable, at least for the remainder of their matches today, if they want to keep themselves in contest for that last spot at Worlds. It's really what it's all about. Energy punching their ticket means that there's now 3 teams trying to compete for 1 spot.
It's kind of funny that, you look at Zapman on Twitter last night. I don't think he realized that there was still potential for them to qualify. He was talking about how he was already excited for next year, and then people were saying, "Yo, Zap, like, you can still make it this year." And oh yeah, I guess you're right. I was sitting next to them in the crowd. They're rooting for Energy. When Energy gets off to a bad start, they're freaking out. They're like, "What are you guys doing? Come on!" These guys are invested and clearly very focused on trying to make it happen as Jigz blinks in, finds 3 with that Wrath of Terra, but it's to get the knock up and pull onto Arkkyl, but he gets his purification beads and can reset safely.
And again, excellent target focus out of SpaceStation. Jigz goes for the Hunter of Purification beads. Andinster now trying to juke away from Trixtank's Fafnir Hammerstun and will do so successfully, but 5 members from Dignitas grouped up. Meanwhile, Scary D, free roam on the solo lane side. He's just going to strip away their entire jungle. They're already starved for experience. Now SpaceStation are just going to continuously pull away at this Gold Fury while Dig continue to lose farm.
But SSG need to back up. Andinster has to use the purification beads, and the chase is on from Qvofred. Aegis was used just in case, but Jigz has been left all by himself, trying to get away. Good peel coming out of the Taiko drums from Andinster, and Jigz may be able to survive. Indeed, he will. Homiefe showing up on the backside, trying to take as many cooldowns as he can. Arkyl's jump is down, and here comes Scary.
And Scary's gonna find 1 already in Arkkyl. Zapman finds another with Zyrhoes on the backside. Qvofred in a whole world of trouble, trapped in between, again, 2 more members from SpaceStation, and that's a 3 for nothing.
Great peel there for for SpaceStation to get Jigz out of danger. Scary with the well-timed rotation. He did strip away that entire right side jungle from Dignitas, and then he came over and still was able to make an impact in the team fight. Variety gets caught sleeping by the enemy. Purple buff was trying to strip that away and gets his ult forced out. This is going to be a Portal Demon for SpaceStation and a Gold Fury as well.
I'm pretty sure they're going to have zero hesitation pulling this Gold Fury. Variety way too poked out to try and contest. Zapman will tear him apart. Andinster as well, and there is nothing that a lone Fafnir can do either. And already a 12,000, almost 13,000 gold lead between these two teams, but more importantly, we're looking at nearly a 16,000 experience difference.
That's crazy, and a lot of that is on the Scary D, who's already nearly level 20. He's 4 levels up over Variety. Zap 3 levels up on his opposition, 3 levels for Homiefe as well. It's been a consistent beatdown so far from SpaceStation, and now they're looking for their Fire Giant, and it doesn't look like Dignitas is interested in trying to defend it. 21, nearly 22 minutes in, and SpaceStation up by 1 million, and now with a Fire Giant.
Even if Dignitas wanted to defend it, they couldn't. Speaking of which, Variety probably just going to try and defend his life. Zapman able to find the stun on him. He really wants to force his ultimate.
Root.
Variety's still caught up, and he actually can't escape. His ult wasn't up off cooldown.
Really nice route up and over the wall by Scary D, set up by the slow from Zapman's ultimate. And it ends up with a dead Variety, 0 and 2, but has not been an impact so far in this one. As Homiefe trying to come over here and defend the split push that Arkkyl going for. The left-hand side does concede the tier 1 tower on nearly only 500 gold in Dignitas' favor, as SpaceStation strip away the right side tier 2 and the middle tier 2 as well.
They're completely spreading the map with their advantage. Homiefe going to be able to dash away from that one. Qvo just looking for the commitment, but not sure that T2 tower dive's the one you want. Homiefe going to pull him back in for more damage, and look at these autos. They're just destroying Qvo.
Look at how Arkkyl just backs and Arkkyl throws the axe and then immediately backs up, and that's exactly when Qvo blinks and ults in, and Arkkyl just backs right in front of him without helping at all. I mean, if you want a microcosm of Dignitas' Super Regionals, clip that.
That is it to a T, but I can't fault Arkkyl for backing there. I think they both die if Arkkyl tries to stay. I know that might sound absurd because it is a Susano with basically full damage, but even still, Arkkyl would have to just be so precise with every single one of his abilities off after the missed axe stun that I just don't think it's worthwhile for him to try and help save Qvo's life. Qvo already invested everything that he had to try and do something, and it's just not going to work out.
I suppose, I don't know who makes the, who's ignoring a call there, whether it's Qvo ignoring Arkyl's call to back off or it's Arkkyl ignoring the call to dive. But that, at this level, even when you've had a bad event, I don't know, that just leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
There's just, the thing is though, you say, I don't know who made the call there, but the thing is, I really don't think there was a call there. This is one of those circumstances where Dignitas hasn't really talked to each other for the past 2 days when it comes to comms. Their mouths don't move when the player cams go over them. Their mouths don't move when you're in the arena. You don't hear anything out of them. This team just fell into a full-on tilt disparity that there is almost no way for them to come out of it.
Just, as a former player, you can speak to this as well. There are few things more frustrating than getting left hung out to dry in any situation, and to not have any comms at this stage is not, it doesn't bode well individually for these players, regardless of whether or not they end up sticking together. That's the sort of stigma that kind of hangs around you, that when things don't start going well, that you're gonna kind of give it up. As Variety is gonna give up his life here, as Homiefe gets credit for that one. Nice taunt onto Trixtank there. Andinster takes very little damage from the stun from Zyrhoes, and before the transformation even completes, Zapman finds another kill. The domination from SpaceStation Gaming nearly coming to a close. Their HRX dreams still alive.
Well, I mentioned earlier, Energy gave them a gift, and SpaceStation are not looking to waste it. Arkkyl deleted in seconds. Didn't even get a chance to really go over that, but Trixtank is pretty much going to follow the same fate, trying to hide on the fountain for just a little bit longer, and he'll hold on to his life, but Dignitas can't hold on to the game.
I don't think a team ever wants to get off stage faster than Dignitas does right now. I think they are done with playing Smite this season, and gladly for them with how they looked towards the end of this Super Regionals. SpaceStation, though, has that hope, has that focus to go to HRX. As we mentioned, still needs a little bit of help. They need to finish out and win the rest of their games today, and they need to make sure that Trifecta can beat Elevate and force everyone into a three-way tie at 3-2.
It's still going to be an uphill battle for not only SpaceStation, but Trifecta as well, because the match, this next one that Trifecta has coming up is probably the most important one, just knowing that if they fall here, they're pretty much out of contest. It's just going to be about helping out SpaceStation if they beat Elevate later on.
And SpaceStation has looked like a completely different team today than they did yesterday and even on Wednesday. They really look like a team that has refocused and kind of readjusted to what the other successful teams here at Super Regionals are doing. And for me, it all revolves around that jungler, Homiefe. I mean, his resurgence and his playing with confidence has been a big difference maker for them.
I think it does say a bit too when Homiefe is able to build full damage. Right now, this meta has been heavily regarded as one where most junglers need to usually pick up that defensive item or two. But whenever you get a lead like that, Homiefe, he's not one to really throw it away.
Well, Dignitas, they're done. But SpaceStation's HRX dreams, they're still alive.
Welcome back to the desk here. We got Finch, we got Emilzy, we got Tolly, and then we also got the dream still alive for SpaceStation Gaming. They still got a way to get in there, Tolly, after coming out big against Dig.
And more importantly is their next game against Trifecta, because sure, they kind of abused the struggling Dignitas. You know, they didn't come in with their full efforts, I feel. You know, they played so well online. They played fantastically in the summer, winning the championships, but here at Super Regionals, where everything is on the line, not pulling it through.
Yeah, it's a bit rough. They kind of had the same at DreamHack, right, in Valencia, where they looked really, really rough coming off of a great split online. And I think that's just kind of how it goes for SSG. They're really, really strong online, and they're a bit worse online. And I always think they're like polar opposites to Rival, right? They have really rough online splits, and then whenever they come to land, they just show up and 3-0 Dignitas. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, that's kind of how it feels like it to me too. I want to ask you here, Emilzy, you know, because you're over there, you're our top seed in EU right now, so I know that you're talking with some of these other EU teams. How are Dignitas feeling right now? Can you go through a little bit of it? Did they come in here wanting to win these games today? Like, can you tell me a little bit about how they're feeling?
I think Zyrhoes' tweet kind of said it all. Prediction, we win. And I think that's how most people felt, that they always show up and they play meta game. Therefore, they also have the biggest chance of winning. I thought we are going to win. But yeah, the general consensus was Dig is the strongest team going into this. And it's been rough for them. Like, I've talked a lot to them. I'm really good friends with a lot of players on the team, and it's a horrible feeling, right, not making Worlds, especially for Trix and Qvofred. This is the second year in a row where they're just dropping out in Super Regionals.
From the outside looking in for Dignitas, where exactly did it go wrong? Do you think, like, after the 0-3 loss to Rival, like, they already checked out?
I talked to Qvofred a lot, and for him, at least, it was after that game 2 against Rival, the really long game.
1 hour.
You have 3 Phoenixes down, and I think a general rule is if you have 3 Phoenixes down, that's pretty much a free win. You're kind of just playing it out, and you are expecting to win. So they didn't like make 1 mistake. They made 4 mistakes. They made 5 mistakes. They were hesitating so much in front of those Phoenixes. They lost the fight, and then Rival just came back, and I think that has just sat in the back of their heads for this whole tournament.
Well, either way, we can see that was still kind of carrying with them. Even Qvofred kind of struggling here in this game up against SpaceStation, but it's not all doom and gloom. SpaceStation ended up coming out of this looking good. Not great, of course, though. They still have a difficult path, but they looked great in this game. In particular, though, man, it feels like when Homiefe is on, SpaceStation Gaming is on, and this Susano pick really worked for him totally.
And what's also more impressive for me was the fact that this Susano wasn't a common themed pick pick for Homiefe, or honestly, too many other junglers here in Super Regionals. The jungle meta is just always shifting between different picks. The fact that Homiefe can comfortably pick it out here in a very important game, putting them at 2 wins, shows the true strengths of SpaceStation. They're still not out of it. They can still make it.
You want to talk to me a little bit here, Emilzy, about this Susano pick? Because like Tully said, we don't see it a whole lot. How do you feel when you go up against it? Because I know, at least personally, it can be pretty annoying having him in the other jungle.
So I've always had a really good time against Susano because I was a Terra main. And Terra just does not die to Susano. But now it's like really, really annoying. He's this assassin that just does very well at killing tanks. There's not a lot of other assassins that has that ability to kill a tank. And Susano does that. He's really annoying. He controls you. He follows you. He runs you down. And I think it was a good pick, especially because they get this first blood. When they get the first blood, they're just able to snowball the game out of control, and it showed. Like, it carried.
Momentum is such a key factor, and the fact that the Susano can get in and out of action every single time. Homiefe was just all over Dignitas' face, and honestly, I'm looking forward to this next matchup against Trifecta, because the jungle matchup here, we're going to see Sinosure up against Homiefe, and that should be an interesting one.
Yeah, that jungle matchup there between the two teams, I'm looking forward to it.